welcome to another broadcast of The Curious Mind of Raquel. I am your favorite mermaid mystic. So today I wanted to do something different, and I think that I'm going to try all sorts of things because a better way than to experiment on my channel. And the reason that I wanted to share this little optimistic message with you is because I feel as though there's a great sense of travesty and sadness, and many a folk are struggling in life. And I was reminded about this particular, I was asking Spirit when I was meditating yesterday and then this morning to know how that I can help Mermaid Darlings Petticoat Society and what would be instrumental in helping all of you. And because I don't want rhetoric on my channel, and obviously you know that I'm very sensitive to, and you as well are sensitive to the many things that go on in the world, okay? And so I always want to have my channel be a bit of a reprieve, and I also want it to be a bit, I mean, not a bit, but I want it to be really super positive, and not in the sense that, you know, oh, you're completely unrealistic in the sense that you don't share what's really going on in the world. No, that's not what I'm doing, because everyone knows, I mean, all of you darlings know that I've had really difficult life and loads of difficult experiences. And so that's not what I'm doing, is trying to pretend that things like this don't occur. But like I said, I was reminded yesterday and then this morning that, you know, after petitioning Spirit what I should do for my channel, was that I was reminded about my dear friend Mabel on the Instagram. And she had come to me in May. She had come to me in May and she said, Raquel, would you paint me a lovely, and I shared it on my Instagram, she said, would you paint me a beautiful little house, you know, the kind of house that I dream of? And I would love it to have my little mice in there, because she had a little collection of little pet mice. And so I painted it for her, and then I did not realize how bad and struggling she was. I mean, I knew that she was struggling, darlings, but I did not know the catastrophic severity of how much she was struggling. And she took her own life about 2.5 weeks after I had sent the painting to England. And I was just gutted, you know, because I had no clue. And she would give me little hints and everything, but I, you know, it's just, what travesty. And so I thought, you know, we don't know how much people are struggling, how many people will just delete themselves from life. And I thought, if I can share daily, or at least every other day or something, a positive, optimistic, channeled message for the, you know, our collective, I like to call you, rather than collective, I like to call you the Mermaid Darlings Petticoat Society. I feel as though this is my wheelhouse to do so. And that's not to say that we're not looking at things from the perspective of knowing that the world can be a harsh reality, okay? That's not what I'm doing. But what I am doing is trying to spread love and trying to spread positivity and a sense of encouragement when someone might be having, you know, a very woe is me moment, or, you know, feeling like a wounded bird, you know what I mean? And so I wanted to share something. So I was reminded of this beautiful story that Jeffrey Sean and I were talking about yesterday, and I thought that it was so fitting, because I feel as though Spirit was saying, hey, share that. That's a beautiful metaphor for life. And it goes like this. So Jeffrey Sean, my beloved husband, twin flame, he lost his parents at a very young age, okay? He lost his mother when he was 15. And so there was a family of 4 siblings. There was 4 siblings. And so Jeffrey Sean is the middle child. And so he had an older sister. She was already married and gone away from the home. But then there was the oldest brother, then Jeffrey Sean, then his little brother. And so Jeffrey was 15 when his mother passed. And his mother passed, his father wanted to help the boys, because the boys were the ones left at the house. He wanted to be able to try and help the boys whilst they were grieving their mother's death, and she died of ovarian cancer. And so he wanted to take the boys and start taking them on deep sea fishing trips. So he would do this at least once a month for several years, okay? And so Jeffrey was telling me all about how when he would, and I'm going to relate this back to life because I believe that this is a beautiful metaphor for life, is that he was telling me that, you know, when you go deep sea fishing, that this was a way for him to try, and these are some of his most fondest memories, you know, after his mom passing, that he holds on to even still today, right? And he said, you know, he's like, you know, darling, I learned so much in the sense that, you know, when you're fishing off of this, you go deep in the sea, right? 100 miles out or something. And deep sea fishing is different. And if you are a fisherman, or, you know, girl fisherman, boy fisherman, you know this. So when you're deep sea fishing, you go deep into the ocean, and you also drop your anchor deep in the ocean. It's different than you know, bobbing on the surface, where it's just fishing, you know, out to sea and your bait's floating on the top. Okay, this is different. This is, you've got to let it plunge to the depths. And isn't that so true in life? Okay, so when you're going through life, in order to become the greatest version of yourselves and to rise to that greatest aspect of you becoming this mermaid goddess, you're going to have to do some deep dive work on your mental health and your spirituality, and it's going to require you to dive deep into yourself. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, is it? Because Jeffrey would say that, you know, he was 15, so he's still more of a smaller boy, although he, you know, he's 5'11", but he was talking about, you know, when you're out there and you're fighting against these really large fish, sometimes when you're pulling up, you get a little bruised, you know, you get a little bruised on the rib cage or whatever when you're trying to navigate this fish. And I think that that's so fitting to life, isn't it? Because oftentimes when we're going through these trenches and these deep diving sessions within ourselves, we're going to get bruised up a bit, aren't we, darlings? And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, but it just means that we're learning through the process. And it's okay if we get a little bit bruises, as long as we're doing the work. And then he said something else that I thought was profound, is that, you know, when you're way out to sea and you're on a boat that's a really large boat, okay, and the waves are really strong, that he said, now, I don't advise this. I don't advise that you do this, but he was under the influence, if you know what I mean. And so he would have spirits. They would enjoy themselves with beer and all of that. And like I said, I don't recommend it, but he was saying that even although he was intoxicated on that boat, he learned to navigate and to roll with the punches, which was like he was basically gaining his sea legs. He knew how to work with the boat. And he said, you know, where some people would sit down, or they would get seasick, or they would just be like really not moving because they were trying to work with it. Isn't that the same way in life? But he said, no, I feel like I had my sea legs because I could just roll with it. I would just allow myself without forcing myself. I would just go with the gravitational pull of where the boat was going, and I could walk around. I constantly walked around the boat, and when everyone else was sitting down or everyone else was getting sick, I was learning how to navigate on that boat whilst it was going really fast, and with all the waves and all of that. And I thought that was a beautiful metaphor, because once you learn how to do this and you dive deep into yourself and you learn all of these strategies for how to navigate in life, right? You become really good at it. And so you learn how to roll with the ocean tides. You learn how to navigate the waters of your emotions. You learn how to anchor in and sit with an emotion if we're having a struggle or we're having something, because this is what I tried to explain to my friend Mabel, is that, you know, when we would have our conversations and everything, I would tell her often, I said, darling, I know what it is. It's because you have fought back this great deep sense of you have a maternal and a mothering wound. And it was because she was extremely and fiercely abused from her own mother. And I said, darling, if you can plunge into that, this is the reason that you're having so many struggles. And I'm not saying this to be negative, but I'm saying that oftentimes we think that we have things settled. We think that, no, I can figure this out. I can do this. I don't have to do this. But we force a narrative because we're like, oh, it seems like it's going to be insurmountable, or I don't want to do the inner work because that's going to be really difficult and it's going to be hard. And I really don't want to dive deep into that because I would rather not address it. And so often when I speak and coach women and try and help them, you know, that's what I love about you, darlings, is because I know that you're being on my channel because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to become the best version of yourself. So often there are so many people who they say it, but in this plighting sense of, you know, oh yeah, that sounds lovely on the surface, okay. But how many people really want to dive deep into the waters of the deep diving, of anchoring into emotions that don't necessarily feel so good? And because we're going to get bruises, we absolutely are. But I would rather have bruises than be completely taken out. You know what I mean? You know, it's basically like my analogy is fishing without bait. I mean, wouldn't you rather have bait than fish without bait? I mean, it's like, are you going to have any kind of success in that? No, you're not, because you have no bait on your hook. You know what I mean? And so think that so often people don't realize what you're doing is you're fighting up current when you don't want to do the inner work. And you become such a happier person when you do it because you're learning more about yourself and you're expanding in your consciousness and you're becoming elevated. You're becoming frequency wise, you're rising to the surface of the water and the ocean. And so what better way to live a happy life? Yes, we're going to have to dip in. We got to go down. Sometimes we got to go down to the depths. We're going to get a bit bruised, darlings, but that's all right, you know. And that's why if you've ever bought a painting or you've seen any of my work, the mermaids, I call them mermaidlings, they always have patches on them. And the reason that I do that is because we're going to have patches where we've mended ourselves together, but we're still beautiful mermaid goddesses, although we've got bit patches on us, you know what I mean? Our scales have been a little bruised and a little worn and a little, you know, been through the trenches and been through really, really difficulties. You know, we've hit the seawall a couple of times in life, but we're still making it and we're still beautiful regardless. And so that's why I always put that on my work, on my mermaid tails. They always have like these little gold patches on them, because that's just knowing that you're not trying to erase or pretend everything's perfect, but you can still make it beautiful. Your life can still be beautiful when you got a little, you know, a patch here and there, when you've mended yourself together. But the point that I'm making is that you've mended yourself. And so I just want you to remember that it's okay that if you need to take a time out, you might not want to, you know, dive off the back of the ship and plunge right in. Sometimes that's okay. It's okay. It's just being okay with where you are in that moment, not trying to fix everything and make it perfect, you know, and make it look, you know, to the world, because I think that that's what so often women do. We were raised in an age of religion, if you're like me and in your past was based on religion and these belief systems and environments that were raised on force and everything being, oh, I'm always happy and I'm always on point and I'm always doing, and that's not the true nature of any human being that was ever born of woman. Okay, let's be honest about it. And I think that sometimes we're afraid to show that we got a bit bruises here and there. And I just want you to be comfortable in your own mermaid skin, and realize that it's okay. There's going to be some punches pulled and we're going to come out, but at least we're coming out of it. And we will learn how to we learn about ourselves when we dive deep into our own emotions, our own lives, our own understanding of, okay, why is this happening to me? What is the point of this experience in my life, where we're no longer, retreating back and becoming a victim? We need to be accountable and take responsibility for our lives. There's nothing more profoundly sovereign than to be a freedom thinking mermaid goddess, and to be sovereign in your own knowing, and knowing with this sense of independence that you are a goddess. So there's no one above you, there's no one below you, that there's nothing that you cannot accomplish, there's nothing that you cannot be, do, or have. That's a confirmation there. But I hope that this encouraged you, and I hope that you derive benefit from it. I hope that I know that everyone's been feeling it because we've been in this retrograde. Okay, we're in Saturn, Lion's Gate's coming up, right? And so everyone's feeling it. Everyone's feeling this sense of working through sludge. It's like, so you're not alone, darlings. You're not alone. Everyone's going through it. They might be able to hide it better than you or I, but everyone's going through it. I promise you that. I just want you to remember that if you're feeling a little bit tired, it's only natural that you're feeling tired. If you need to take extra sleep, extra rest, extra just not doing anything, be kind to yourself, and don't apologize for not fulfilling a schedule or not wanting to go to work or calling in or saying, you know what, I'm choosing not to do that today. I'm going to clear my schedule and this is going to be all about me. And if there's anything, I just want everyone to I want women to really, really begin being selfish. I advocate for selfishness. I really do. Because at the end of the day, we are all selfish. We will always come back to being selfish. It's just the truth, inherent truth. And one's made that be especially people in religion, that it's ineffective and it's unkind, and we need to be humble, and we need to be, you can be humble, but at the end of the day, we're all selfish. We came selfish. We came alone into this world, and we will leave alone, and we will always choose self over everyone, over any person. We will always choose self. And a measurement of recognizing this is, if it's me or you, you're always benefiting from whatever you're doing. When you say, oh no, I'm doing this because I'm helping, we're always doing something. And whatever we're getting out of it, it's always going to be about ourselves. Truthfully, I started videos on the YouTube 11 years ago because of myself. Yes, I want to help other people, but the initial reason for that was I wanted to help me, because I wanted to figure out, why am I so messed up? What is wrong with me? Was there anything wrong with me? Why didn't I feel loved? Why did I need validation in the beginning? Why did I have all of these issues and troubles and difficulties in my marriage? Why was I married to a narcissist? Why was I struggling with so many things? So I initially was selfish. I wanted to figure this out for myself. And so I think that it's important to own that, to say, no, I am selfish. Because once you can admit that, we're halfway there, darlings. We're halfway there. So I think that when we're independent and we're self-sufficient as women, financially, spiritually, emotionally, we can help so many people. because we've helped ourselves first, being selfish. Because then we can give to others. You know, you can't give to a half filled cup, can we? No, we cannot. It's impossible to do it. And you will learn very quickly if you try to do it. You know, it's self-defeating. And so I hope this encouraged you. I hope that you enjoyed this. And thank you so much for everyone that orders readings from me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, darlings. It's so helpful that you support my work. Thank you so much. And as always, I'm most affably yours until my next one. Cheers, darlings. Toodle pip.